Yo, what's up, you beautiful little soul? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Jesse, and this is How to Drum and Bass, where it is my mission to break down what the top artists are doing right now and to teach it to you so that you maybe can also improve your drum bass production. And today we're gonna do a breakdown of one of my favorite songs. It was on my Spotify Wrapped as one of my most listened to songs this year, even though it's not even out that long, but I'm addicted to this song. It's got such a good timbre. It's danceable, it's powerful, it's energetic, and to me, it is a really good representation of where Dancefloor is going, because there's a hybrid happening, I feel, a little bit for a few years now between sort of Dancefloor, traditionally like that liquidity style Dancefloor, and Jumpup, where the sort of more synth heavy sort of FME sounds that used to be used in Jumpup are now crossing over to the Dancefloor genre, and I am definitely a fan of it. It just brings so much energy to the dance floor. And before I forget, the song that I'm talking about, of course, as you saw in the title, is Danger by T and Sugah. Of course, maybe I think this is cool because T and Sugah are Dutch, so that's some national heritage for me. I am also a proud Dutchie. But second to that, they just killed their attempt at a song like this, with big artists like Subsonic heading into this kind of direction for a while now. Aktive is someone who does a lot of that. Freaks and Geeks employ the same sound. And yeah, today we're gonna look at how you can achieve something similar. So, as always, you can download the presets to everything that we're using today in the link below, which is especially useful because we're going to use a wavetable that isn't part of the standard Serum wavetables. And also, if you like my content, I will be releasing a start-to-finish Jumpup drum and bass course, which is going to be many hours of me going through an entire song from the beginning to the end. If you might be interested in that, there's also a link in the description where if you sign up now, if you pre-register, you'll get 50% off when it comes out. All right, anyway, without further ado, let's dive in. All right, so the original song sounds something like this. And our reproduction that we're going to have a look at today sounds like this. All right, pretty cool. Let's see how we did that. And let's start with a quick overview of what we're going to talk about today. So today we're going to build the drums, which are very simple. We're going to build that Doink sound, which, by the way, I don't know if it's just me, but the only thing that I was thinking of when I was trying to recreate it is this. But put a comment if you did that as a kid. All right, now back to business. So yeah, we're going to build that that ruler Doink sound. Then going to build a very, very easy sub. And then the meat and potatoes of this video is going to be the lead, which sounds something like this. A mid bass that tucks under the lead, which sounds like this. That really gives the fatness to that lead. And then we're going to actually play around quite a bit with some filler noise. We're going to employ some white noise layer here and some cymbal layering. And we're going to add some atmospheric notes to further fill up the frequency spectrum. So let's start with the drums. Very easy. What we're hearing in this song is a pretty powerful kick that has some top end, and we're hearing just a very standard Dancefloor snare. You can literally jump on Splice, find samples that are Dancefloor samples, and that is pretty much all you need. So that's what we've got here. We've got a kick with only a high shelf to sort of accentuate the extra high frequencies. So without it, it's, and with that extra little oomph, it's. And it just makes a little bit of a difference when that kick hits. And then we've got a snare sample that is actually already so saturated, we don't even need to saturate it anymore. This entire waveform is almost square, as you can see. So that's beautiful. And we got a very simple kick and snare pattern like this. That's everything. That's all there is to it. And that's something that you'll notice often in sort of the dance-floory songs, is that the drums tend to be quite simple. They're powerful drums, often very saturated, a lot of parallel compression, which now we're not doing that, but you can already see that that's been done in these samples from Splice. And then everything else that is not the drums, that's what fills up the sort of spectrum of interestingness. We don't find much variation in dance floor drums. Sometimes there's a second kick instead of it'll be, but that's pretty much it. All right, moving on. Let's go to this little Doink sound. The Doink sound that we've created sounds like this. Now, we've got a patch here with a little bit of processing. It's not all too difficult. But I want to start out by saying that this is a difficult route to do this. You could actually very simply get to a similar sound by just getting a Serum patch, grabbing one of the monster wavetables, making one of these sort of shark fin shapes, and then applying that LFO to the cutoff of a filter. That'll already get you something like this. And then you can apply some additional processing on top of that to make it sound more crunchy or to accentuate some frequencies. That will already make a very good basic bass hit, because that's essentially what this is. But to get the specific timbre from T and Sugah, we went a little bit further than that. So what we've got here is we've got a Serum patch here with a wavetable that I'll include in a download link, but which is sort of similar to the monster wavetables. The whole progression of it looks like this, so it doesn't morph all that much. We got it at a wavetable position of 15, and then at -2 semitones, and then we've got at a perfect fifth, we've got a basic CJW, which is essentially sort of like a sine wave, and this is just used to modulate, to frequency modulate this already pretty crazy shape. And what it does is it just adds a little bit extra of that sort of sound like the ruler did, kind of. So yeah, we've got this basic CJW, and it's got a little bit of asim on it, although that doesn't affect the sound all that much, just some fine tuning there. Modulating this ruler wavetable at 6%, and then filtered with a comb filter. Now, whenever anything sounds like it's really got a lot of that and sort of rawness going on in there, I think raw is probably the right word. There's a very good chance that a comb filter is being used. And comb filters are really cool because they can really, when you change the cutoff, give you a very different timbre of sound. So if we go and we just move this cutoff here, and we just move this here, we can get all kinds of interesting sounds. So what you want to do is you want to find the right cutoff to get the timbre that you like. For this one, we've got it at 89 Hertz, applied to both A and B with no other changes to the settings. And then if we weren't going to apply any LFOs to that, and it would be like an elongated sound, which already sounds pretty cool, but that's not what we want. We have a single bass hit here, and that's why we want it to be plucky. So we're going to use LFO modulation to shape the sound in a pluck, and to take the effects that we're going to apply on the sound and also shape them in that way. So we get a very simple shape like this here. I played around with the BPM until I got sort of the quickness that I wanted, and I got it at 1.2 Hertz, but you can also just put on BPM mode and probably put it around 2 bars. And then we're going to take that and we're going to apply it to a number of things. We're going to apply it to the level of A so that it follows, the amplitude follows this plucky kind of shape. We're going to give it a little bit of FM from B to move along with that shape as well. And then in effects, we're going to add some dimension to make it broader and give it a little bit more of a spectral sort of sound. We're going to apply some soft clip distortion, but we're going to filter out some of the frequencies just in that lower range here by using this presetting here, which essentially means that we affect the signal before we put distortion over it. And then we're going to put the drive all the way up because we want it to sound really saturated. And then, of course, we're going to do some multi-band compression. We're going to put the threshold at -10 decibels, and then we're going to apply this LFO to the mix of that as well, so the compression moves over time. And then we're going to apply another MG low filter. Although I would say that is probably optional. Right, and then in post-production, we want to further determine the tonality of the sound to sound a little bit more sort of grungy, a little bit more destroyed, and to also get a little bit more of those higher frequencies in there. So we're going to apply some saturation, some reverb, and some EQing. So right now, without any of that, the sound sounds like this, which is very raw, and we kind of need it to be sort of tamed. And one way to do that is to kind of just sort of compress it through saturation and to add some noise layers. So first of all, let's see if we can get the tonality a little bit more right. This sounds a little bit more juicy, right? And then one thing that you can do if you're looking for the right timbre is just to start applying overdrive. That already sounds a lot more nice and saturated, which is going to fit nice with the lead, which is also quite a sort of compressed and saturated sound. And actually, I wanted to even apply more, so I just added a second instance of overdrive. to make it sound even more sort of sophisticated and ready to fit into a noisy mix. And then what we can do is we can apply all sorts of saturation. Now, I have purchased Rift, which is a really cool plugin, which allows you to distort the wave differently between the positive and the negative shape. It's some pretty advanced stuff, and I gotta say, I'm not fully in control of everything that's on this panel right here now, but it's yielding some very interesting results as I learn more about it. And I just found this smeared chew preset that makes it sound just that little bit more juicy. So that sounds like this versus, and that is the sound that I was looking for. But if you don't have Rift, which you might not because it's expensive, you could actually get away with just using some saturator. That also makes it sound pretty similar. Just slightly less sophisticated, I would say. Or you could even go and get one of the free Melda plugins like a Wave Shaper. And there's some really cool presets here that make it sound, for example, even more saturated or even more like a ruler, actually. I found this one. And you can just scroll through some of these cool Wave Shaper preset. For now, we're going to continue with Rift. And then, of course, to make it sound a little bit more grand, we always want to apply some reverb with a very short decay because we don't want it to sort of resound too much. We just want to give it some roominess here. And then, because we're going to have a sub-playing, we also want to filter out anything below 100 Hertz for the resulting sound to sound like this. And then this sound repeats at the beginning of every bar. All right, nice. Then let's move on to the lead. We've got the lead here, which is actually 3 layers. Now, we've got them in this lead group right here with a tiny bit of group processing. But let's see what just this top part of the lead is. So what you're hearing actually is not a very difficult patch. But what we're seeing is that there's some EQing done to get the timbre right. So what have we got here? Well, we have a pretty simple patch. Actually, this is just 2 saw waves that are oscillating at a perfect fifth, just with a difference in octaves. We got a normal saw wave and we have a rounded saw wave right here at -2 and -7. And you could apply some FM from B, by the way, to make this sound a little bit more dirty. That's not what we're doing today. Then we have in the envelope a shape like this, which honestly doesn't do all that much, but just shapes how the sound progresses a little bit. And then we have this LFO moving very fast, sort of messing a bit with the pitch, so detuning the sound a little bit. And then we've got an MG low filter here affecting both oscillators that is tuned to each note so that the cutoff frequency changes with every note that we play. And then this sound is EQ'd to take out a lot of the lows. It's compressed quite heavily to take out more of the lows as well on a multiband. And then some dimension is added, which we use actually envelope 2 to modulate that. And now actually it's just going towards the top value, but you can change this around to affect the quality of the sound as well. Which is not necessary for this tutorial, but which I'm 100% sure happens later in the song when they're shifting the sound towards the end of the drop and just slightly making the timbre different to make it sound more interesting. And then envelope 1 is applied also to the gain of this EQ here. Just making a little bit of a sweep in the sound right there. And then in post-processing, without any EQing, it is going to sound like this. You can hear there's a lot of really harsh highs in there, and that's not what we want. So we're going to get some EQing, and we're going to take out pretty much the whole area between 10 and sort of 2K. And when we do that, what we'll notice is there was still going to be a lot of highs, but they're not as harsh anymore. Versus... So now it's a lot more heavier on the mids, which is what we're looking for here. And then we can bring some of that leftover tonality out with an OTT right here, which is pretty much just at standard settings. And then in an attempt to sort of further make the sound a bit more mono, we can decrease the width, which is essentially just making it less stereo, because stereo is what makes the highs sound harsh most of the time. So we can use this width and turn it down just a little bit to do that. And then we're left with this sound, which sounds like it's really getting there, but I feel like it needs a lot more noisiness and distortion and grit. So we can apply a very wide overdrive to sort of take care of that. Versus we don't need that. And then, of course, we want to really compress the sound and have it clip a little bit to get some extra distortion going on too, and to really get that compressed dance floor drum and bass lead feel. All right, so that is part of the song, but it is not enough to make the track sound full. And because we've got quite a chirpy lead here, one thing to do that'll really make the song sound a lot fuller, but also that'll amplify the power of the sound on larger systems where you can just hear all the frequencies a lot better than, for example, in your car speaker, is to build a mid bass under it. And that is not the sub bass, but it sits between the lead and the sub bass and fills up that middle of the frequency spectrum. And usually that's what's going to add a lot of the to a sound, basically. So we're going to build a mid bass like this. Very gnarly, and it's going to sit, it's going to tuck nicely under that lead. So the lead by itself would sound like this. And then when we add it, it sounds like this. So that gives it a bit more body, and it just makes it sharper. It makes it hit harder on that dance floor. So for the mid bass, we've got these two Icon Has Kick wavetables. I'm not sure why this one doesn't say Icon Has Kick, because it's exactly the Icon Has Kick wavetable. And we got both of them oscillating at -2 octaves with no crazy settings whatsoever. They're both at a wavetable position of 193. And the only thing that's being modulated with an LFO is the level of it, so that it sort of sweeps a little bit more, so that it goes wow, 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 and the cutoff of the filter. Now, oscillator B, the reason we have two oscillators is because we can sort of add more high tones, which this Icon Has Kick wavetable has some really nice high chirpy tones if we wanted to. So as you can see, we've got a couple of macro knobs here, and one of them is called crisp, and it will add crisp to it by increasing the level of this oscillator. Because without it, it sounds like just get a little bit less crisp. So we got the bass of one of the Icon Has Kick wavetables, and we can let the other one come through the filter at just a lower level, so a maximum of here. And that's just a way sort of to get the best out of both parts of the wavetable. And then the only thing else that we've done to this is we've put it on mono, and we've got a bunch of dimension here that, if we want to, we can also increase with a macro. This is something that you might want to modulate in automation through the rest of your track to sort of make the sound a little bit more interesting. So for example, what we can do is we can make it more or less stereo. Which is just another way to make your sound evolve over time throughout the song, so that you don't keep blasting the exact same lead. And then in post-production, we haven't really done all that much. There's some erosion to add some more noise and some more grit to it, which really does actually add some nice noise layering. You could apply some overdrive, but I think in this case, that was just a little bit too much of the good stuff. And then we've got some EQing, and what we want to do, so around 200 hertz, that's where a lot of the, 250, 300 hertz, that's where a lot of the sort of muddiness comes. And because we're going to have a really big fat sub bass playing, and we're going to have this very frequency wide lead here, we just want to decrease a lot of these here, but then we want to get that crispiness out of there. So we're going to basically raise everything between sort of 8K and, let's say, slightly below 1K, so that instead of this, which sounds very muddy, we're going to get a much cleaner, crispy sound. See how the non-EQ'd sound sounds a lot more blunt, whereas EQ'd, it sounds more sharper. And then, of course, it wouldn't be drum bass if there wasn't compression going on. So we got a pretty freaking aggressive glue compressor on there as well. All right, and then the last thing, because this lead, even though it's got a lot of sort of frequency dispersion, it's quite thin. And because this track only has the big lead playing, you want to get layers to fill up the rest, because otherwise it sounds empty. And there's also, because this lead and this bass and everything, it's so heavy and so fat, there's not room for a lot of sort of foliage or textures or atmospheres. It's hard to include that because this is so in your face. So one thing that you can resort to just make the background, that's normally filled by, some siren or some little chirpy laser sounds or some atmospheric, some people put nature sounds in there or just humming, whatever. There's no room for that, but there is always room for white noise. So we can add a white noise layer, literally just a Serum layer that is just playing through an EQ, the higher frequencies here, that is just oscillating an ARP white. And it's just going to sound like this. Which, by the way, the volume automation in here, that's the sidechaining that's on the group here. So actually it's just white noise playing, and that's just going to fill everything up a lot nicer. So this probably doesn't sound that much more interesting on your headphones right now, but in the context of a big speaker, it's going to make the song sound fuller and more professional. All right, so that's our lead group. And then on the group processing, all we have is just a little bit of extra OTT. Just get a little bit more of those mids out, because that's where, in this case, a lot of the sharpness comes from, sort of the mid-high range. So that's what we're attenuating here. We have a reverb, nothing too big, just 6% mix, but just to get it a little bit more roomy and big. And then we've got this little surgical EQ. Once again, taking a little bit of those sort of 300 hertz frequencies out to decrease the mud that's in there. And we've got some side chaining with Duck Buddy. That is all. And it's going to sound like this. Now, of course, we're still missing a big fat sub. So let's not spend too much time on it because it's very simple. But for the sub, we basically have a super simple Serum patch. It's a sine wave oscillating at -1 octave with an MG low filter on it, tiny bit of drive, an asymmetric pre-filter distortion that's essentially just distorting everything under 80 hertz. So that's just the sub frequencies, meaning that we don't have to do any more extra filtering here. And then once again, we're taking out stuff around 300 hertz to sort of take out that muddy frequency spectrum. And of course, it's side chained to everything, making it sound like this. And that's what's going to really level out the chirpiness of the lead sound and make it powerful on both fronts. So together, they sound like this. All right, and then last but not least, because this track needs some more filling up on the back, there's some noise crashes going on here. So for sure, whenever that doink is played, to get a little bit more impact, we already have the kick playing on that first beat, but it always works to add a simple crash just to give it some more top end energy. And then what you can also do as sort of like a rider loop is you can just get the same crash that you've used, but make it a lot shorter, and then add either a noise layer with the vocoder, or add some overdrive, or change the timbre in a slightly different way, and then just high pass it so it only gets, sort of the frequencies above 1K. And that's going to give you something real nice like this. That's just going to sort of add some extra top end energy to your track, which works really well with these kinds of leads. And then the last thing, this is a little bit of an Easter egg, but when we listen to the original track, if you hear on the background, there's some like howling going on. It's almost as someone is sort of humming the tune. So listen really on the background. It's as if someone's going, woo, woo, woo. I don't know if you can hear that. I've got professional headphones on. Maybe it's only audible on something with more that brings it out more. But just for shits and giggles, I figured we could do the same. So I got this howling sample here, which is just an audio sample, and some reverb onto it, so that we've got. just something extra on the background that adds a little bit of less boringness and character to it. And so, yeah, that's the final end result. And it all sounds like this. Yeah, so that was the video. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did learn something today, let me know in the comments what you thought was the most interesting thing. Also, let me know what else you want to see, because I'm looking for video ideas. So, and you need to help me out, because I want to make what you want to see. So that's the video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next one. Don't forget to smash that subscribe button.